Central Park had always been a place of comfort for Emily Fort. She often sat on the same worn-out bench, enjoying the gentle breeze and the melodic chirping of birds. Beside her was Rex, her loyal German Shepherd guide dog. But Rex was more than just a companion. He was her protector, her eyes, and her support ever since she lost her sight 5 years ago. But today, their peaceful routine was about to be disrupted. Across the park, Vince Dalton, a heavily built biker covered in tattoos, leaned against his motorcycle, surrounded by his gang. When he spotted Emily and her perfectly disciplined dog, something about their calm presence irritated him. With a smirk, he flicked away his cigarette and walked towards her, his crew watching in amusement. "Look at this little princess with her perfect dog," he sneered, drawing laughter from his friends. Rex sensed the danger before Emily even heard the heavy footsteps approaching. His ears perked up, his body tensed, and a low growl rumbled from his chest. "Nice dog," Vince said mockingly as he got closer. "Does he do tricks? Maybe he jumps through hoops or does backflips?" Emily tightened her grip on the leash. "Leave us alone," she said firmly, trying to hide her growing fear. But Vince wasn't backing down. He clapped his hands loudly, trying to startle the dog. Rex didn't flinch. His sharp gaze stayed locked onto Vince, his growl deepening. The biker chuckled and took a step closer. "What if I do this?" he taunted, raising his foot as if to kick Rex. And that was his biggest mistake. Vince had no idea who he was messing with. What happened next? How did Rex react? Watch the video till the end to find out. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and tell us in the comments. What would you do in this situation? Central Park was a place of solace for Emily Fort. She often sat on the same worn bench under the shade of tall oak trees, letting the wind brush against her face as she enjoyed the songs of birds and the distant sounds of children's laughter. Her hand tightly gripped the leather leash of Rex, her loyal German Shepherd guide dog. Rex was more than just a companion to her. He was her protector, her eyes, and her support ever since she lost her sight 5 years ago. Despite the peaceful surroundings, Rex remained vigilant. His ears twitched at every sound, and his gaze carefully scanned the park as if anticipating danger. On the other side of the park, Vince Dalton leaned against his motorcycle, surrounded by a group of bikers in leather jackets. His bulky frame, tattoos, and rough demeanor set him apart from the rest. Vince noticed Emily sitting with Rex. Her calm expression and the dog's poised demeanor seemed to irritate him. Tossing a cigarette, but Vince smirked. "Look at this princess with her perfect little dog," he said, eliciting laughter from his group. The heavy sound of Vince's boots echoed on the pavement as he approached Emily. Rex sensed him first. His ears perked up, his body tensed, and a low growl rumbled from his chest. Feeling the leash tighten, Emily turned her head toward the sound of approaching footsteps. "Hey, beautiful," Vince sneered, his voice dripping with sarcasm. "Nice dog. Does he do tricks? Can he jump through hoops or roll over?" Emily tightened her grip on the leash. Her heart raced. She couldn't see the man, but the malice in his voice was unmistakable. "Leave us alone," she said firmly, trying to hide her growing fear. But Vince didn't back down. He clapped his hands loudly, trying to provoke Rex. The dog remained composed, his intense gaze fixed on Vince, though his growl grew louder. "Oh, tough dog, huh?" Vince taunted, feeling the eyes of the crowd on him. Deciding to escalate the tension, he raised his leg as if to kick Rex. The shepherd's growl turned into a fierce, guttural warning. "Don't you dare," Emily shouted. Vince didn't know that Rex wasn't an ordinary dog. He was trained to handle far greater threats than this bully. As Vince's foot came closer, Rex's military training instincts kicked in. His muscles tensed, his gaze locked onto the approaching threat. The park fell silent, the atmosphere thick with tension as the onlookers held their breath, waiting for what would happen next. Vince's mocking laugh broke the silence as he raised his leg higher, reveling in the tension he'd created. "Come on, dog. Show me what you've got," he goaded. Emily's hand clenched the leash even tighter, her fingers turning white from the strain. She couldn't see what was happening, but she could feel the charged, threatening energy in the air. Rex, on the other hand, remained motionless, like a coiled spring ready to snap. Vince had gone too far. A small crowd had gathered, holding their breath as they watched the scene unfold. Someone was recording the incident, while others whispered among themselves. Someone should stop him, a woman murmured, but no one dared to intervene. Emily's voice cut through the tension. Leave us alone. Instead of backing off, Vince just smirked. Gonna protect yourself? He mocked. He's just a big lapdog. Let's see what he's got. When Vince swung his foot toward Rex, the shepherd reacted instantly, dodging the kick. Rex barked loudly and authoritatively, his voice echoing across the park. In the next second, he positioned himself between Emily and Vince, his eyes never leaving the aggressor. This wasn't just a pet's reaction. It was the calculated response of a professional ready to neutralize a threat. Vince stumbled back, stunned by the fury emanating from Rex. For a moment, time seemed to stand still. Emily, gripping the leash tightly, felt the tension radiating from the dog and the shift in the air. "Rex," she whispered, her voice trembling. But Rex didn't take his eyes off Vince, waiting for his next move. Vince, too, had changed. His mocking smile was gone, replaced by a shadow of doubt. "What kind of dog is this?" he muttered, his tone now tinged with uncertainty. The crowd buzzed with whispers, and phones continued to record the scene. As the park ranger pushed through the crowd, he demanded sternly, "What's going on here?" The tension began to ease. Rex maintained his stance, clearly signaling that any further threat would be met with action. Emily exhaled slowly, feeling the leash slacken slightly, though the danger still lingered in the air. Vince took a step back, raising his hands in a conciliatory gesture. "Relax, I was just joking. The dog's overreacting," he mumbled. The ranger stepped between Vince and Emily, crossing his arms and glaring at Vince with disapproval. "You think threatening a service dog is a joke? That's not just irresponsible, it's illegal." Emily still held the leash tightly, her hands trembling. Rex stood like a rock in front of her, his piercing gaze fixed on Vince. The atmosphere remained tense, amplified by the murmurs of the crowd. The ranger's voice was calm but firm. "This dog is doing his job, protecting her. And it seems he's doing it a lot better than you're handling being a decent human being." Vince's smirk vanished completely under the weight of those words. Rex continued to emit a low growl, and Emily gently touched his head. "Good boy, Rex." She was shaking, but her voice was filled with gratitude. The crowd fell silent. Some were still recording, while others whispered among themselves. Suddenly, an elderly man stepped forward. His faded military cap reflected the sunlight. His voice cut through the murmurs. "This is no ordinary dog." His face, lined with the marks of experience, was serious as he pointed at Rex. "I recognized that stance. This is a service dog." Even Vince looked stunned. Emily turned to the man, confused. "What do you mean?" "He's my guide dog," she said, tightening her grip on the leash. Her voice was quiet and shaky. The old man stepped closer, nodding slowly and confidently. "He's your guide dog now, miss. But I'm certain he's had training that only military dogs receive." The man's words struck Emily like a thunderbolt. Overwhelmed by emotion, she knelt beside Rex, stroking his thick fur and looking at him with newfound understanding. "Rex," she whispered. Her voice was filled with awe and disbelief. She had always known Rex was special, but this revelation stunned her. The man spoke again, his voice respectful. "Dogs like him are heroes. They're trained for the battlefield, to protect soldiers and neutralize threats." His reaction to that man was because he saw a potential danger. His gaze hardened for a moment as he looked at Vince, who now seemed visibly uneasy. Vince's confidence had completely evaporated. "I didn't know," Vince muttered, his voice barely audible. The ranger stepped closer, his tone firm. "Your ignorance doesn't excuse your behavior. You're lucky this dog showed restraint." Rex's stance softened slightly, but he remained alert, watching Vince, ready to intervene again if necessary. The crowd buzzed with newfound respect for Rex. He was no longer just a guide dog in their eyes, he was a protector. The ranger's face was a mix of sternness and disdain as he addressed Vince. "Get out of here." His voice was sharp, and he gestured for Vince to leave. Vince hesitated, glancing at Rex with a newfound respect. The whispers in the crowd grew louder. "Call the police!" someone shouted. Vince cursed under his breath. His tough guy facade crumbled under the crowd's scrutiny. Rex, now slightly more relaxed but still watchful, kept his eyes on Vince, ready to act if needed. For Emily, everything felt like a chaotic whirlwind. Rex is a military dog. Her thoughts echoed the old man's words about battlefields, soldiers, and threats. She knelt beside Rex again, her touch gentle but her hands trembling as she stroked his fur. "Rex," she whispered softly. Her voice was filled with reverence, as if she were trying to grasp the part of him that had been hidden until now. He leaned his head toward Emily, his eyes full of loyalty, still watching Vince. His unwavering gaze spoke of a devotion that overwhelmed her. "You've always been my protector," she whispered. The old man stepped closer again, his face serious but kind. "You should know that dogs like him aren't just pets. Their instincts run deep, ready to surface when they sense you're in danger. Today, he decided you needed his protection." Tears filled Emily's eyes as she remembered all the times Rex had been overly alert, stopping her or shielding her. She had always thought of him as just a loyal dog, but now she knew he was so much more. Meanwhile, Vince looked increasingly uncomfortable. All right, he muttered, backing away. "I didn't mean any harm." The ranger wasn't convinced. "That's not for you to decide. You've done enough." Vince, shoulders slumped, shuffled toward the exit, while the ranger made sure he didn't return. The crowd began to disperse slowly. The old man stayed behind. His eyes were filled with deep respect for the dog. As the whispers died down, Emily sat silently on the bench, stroking Rex's back. "You've always been my protector," she whispered. Her voice trembled. "But I never realized how far you'd go for me." Rex stayed by her side, now calm, his eyes scanning the park as if ensuring the threat was truly gone. For Emily, the park had transformed from a place of peace to a place where she had confronted an unexpected truth, one that forever changed her understanding of Rex and herself. That evening, she sat on the edge of her modest couch, looking at Rex lying at her feet. The day's events swirled in her mind. Vince's hostility, the ranger's timely intervention, and, most importantly, the revelation of Rex's past. Her hand hovered over her laptop keyboard. Unsure of what to search for, she finally typed, "History of Military K9S." She delved into numerous articles and stories, uncovering more about Rex's past. These dogs weren't just trained. They were warriors, prepared to detect threats, protect their partners, and remain composed under pressure. Their abilities explained everything she had seen in Rex's behavior that day. But it raised new questions. What had he been through? Who were his comrades? How had he ended up as her dog? The thought of how much he might have lost made her heart ache. She closed her laptop and slid to the floor beside him, stroking his thick fur. "I've always relied on you, Rex," she whispered softly. "But now I truly understand who you are. You've been through so much, haven't you?" Hearing her voice, Rex perked up his ears and leaned closer to her. For the first time, Emily felt not just dependence on him, but a deep connection to his silent strength and unwavering loyalty. The next day, Emily decided to take action. She contacted a local veterans organization, shared what had happened, and asked for help uncovering Rex's past. The woman on the other end promised to investigate. Many retired service dogs take on new roles, like guide dogs or therapy dogs, she explained. It helps them maintain a sense of purpose after their service. The word purpose took on new meaning for Emily. Rex wasn't just assigned to help her. He was protecting her in ways she was only beginning to understand. After the call, Emily sat beside Rex again. "We'll figure this out together," she said confidently, giving him a soft smile. Rex responded with a gentle wag of his tail. His calm presence brought her comfort. No matter what she learned about his past, Emily was sure of one thing. Rex wasn't just her guide dog. He was her hero.